How you doing, Zay's? It's my found E. I'm sending you this video to let you know I wish you well. And you can do anything you put your mind to. With hard work and dedication, it's nothing you can't do. I hope this video made you smile. For sure.
IMPD is investigating two homicides that left two men dead overnight.
This, a search for answers after this prominent local musical artist is killed, gunned down overnight on the east side of Indianapolis.
15 trips to jail, murder conspiracy charges, a federal drug case, a SWAT team that caught him climbing out an attic window on live TV. Eric Butler beat all of it, every single time, which makes what happened on June 19th, 2026 feel less like bad luck and more like something that was always coming for him. And before we get into all of that, if this is your first time here, do me a favor right now, like this video, subscribe to Crime Files, and click that bell icon so you never miss a case like this one. We put in the work, so you don't have to go looking. Now let's get into it. Eric David Butler grew up on the east side of Indianapolis, a city that does not always make the national news, but has some of the most layered street politics you will find anywhere in the Midwest. Indianapolis is not New York. It is not Chicago. But if you know the city, you know the east side has its own codes, its own history, and its own body count. From an early age, Eric moved in those circles. He was sharp, funny, quick with words in a way that translated into something real when he picked up a mic. People around Indianapolis started calling him Lil E, and that name started meaning something, not just in the streets, in music, because here is what a lot of people outside of Indiana do not know. Lil E was not a gimmick rapper. He was not someone who bought followers and bought streams and faked a career. He built one. Almost 100,000 monthly Spotify listeners. A music video with over 9 million views on YouTube. A fan base that was loyal in a way that only street rap fans can be, because they heard the truth in his words. His biggest project, Professional Shit Talking, was a collaboration with Michigan rapper Rio the Young OG, released in 2019. Music critics called it a highlight of a street rap renaissance, describing Lil E and Rio as two of the funniest and most captivating rappers working at that time. The standout track, Hardly Breathe, went everywhere. It was the kind of song that made people stop what they were doing and turn up the volume. Songs like Punisher, Fasho by The Block, and Pressure became anthems in Indianapolis. He was not just making music. He was documenting a city, and the city loved him back for it. When he died, one fan wrote on his Instagram, "You'll forever be the greatest rapper to ever come out of Indianapolis." It is not even a debate. The city is going to miss you. The whole world is going to miss you. But to understand why Eric Butler ended up the way he did, you have to understand the world he came up in. And that world had a name, the Grundy Crew. Richard Grundy III was the kind of man that cities like Indianapolis produce once in a generation and spend years trying to contain. He was young, he was bold, and by his mid-20s he had built one of the most feared criminal organizations in the state of Indiana. Prosecutors described the Grundy Crew as a dangerous gang with one purpose: to distribute drugs and promote violence. And the numbers back that up. The Grundy Crew was moving marijuana, cocaine, methamphetamine, and heroin from Arizona into Indianapolis on a scale that was almost hard to believe. Thousands of pounds of marijuana, over 400 pounds of meth, millions of dollars in drug money flowing through the city, and all of it connected back to one man. But the thing about Richard Grundy that made him so difficult to take down was that he was not just a drug dealer. He was allegedly an architect. Prosecutors believed he was ordering murders, 4 of them, to be specific. In January 2014, Tyrus Dorsey and William Davis were shot to death at a convenience store on North Rural Street. 3 days later, Carlos Jefferson and Julius Douglas were found shot dead inside a truck on North Hovey Street. Investigators believe an alleged hitman named John Means carried out all 4 killings on Grundy's orders. And Eric Butler was part of this world, not as a bystander, as a high-ranking member. In October 2015, Marion County prosecutors stood up at a press conference and announced charges against Grundy and 10 of his associates. One of those 10 was Eric David Butler. The charges were serious: dealing in marijuana, corrupt business influence, criminal gang activity, conspiracy to commit murder. Think about that for a second. Eric Butler, the same man whose music video would one day hit 9 million views, was sitting in a courtroom facing murder conspiracy charges. Two worlds colliding in the worst possible way. But here is where the story takes its first major turn, because the case against the Grundy Crew fell apart in a way that was almost unbelievable. The murder charges rested heavily on a key witness, a woman who gave her name to investigators as Portia Harris. She signed Department of Justice paperwork. She received nearly $6,000 from the federal government to relocate as a protected witness. She gave investigators 3 addresses in Georgia where she would be staying, and then investigators started checking those addresses. 2 of them did not exist. When officers finally tracked down the real Portia Harris, she told them her identification had been lost or stolen. The woman they had been relying on had been lying about her identity the entire time. The murder charges collapsed, and one by one, the cases against Grundy Crew members began to fall apart. By November 2017, all 6 of the remaining charges against Eric Butler, including dealing in marijuana, corrupt business influence, and criminal gang activity, were dropped. Prosecutors cited evidentiary problems. Butler walked. He was the last defendant standing in that 2015 case. And when the charges were dismissed, he was released from jail after successfully arguing for a bond reduction. On paper, he was a free man. But the streets have their own kind of memory, and they do not forget the way a courtroom does. Even as Eric was building his music career, the legal system kept finding its way back to him. In 2018, he pleaded guilty to drug charges from an unrelated case. It was a setback, but not a finish line. He kept recording. He kept performing. He kept grinding. Then in September 2023, Indiana State Police came for him again. Investigators had spent weeks building a case around a duplex on East Washington Street on Indianapolis's Near East Side. A confidential informant had conducted multiple controlled drug buys at the location. Troopers watched the house. 3 people would enter and quickly exit within 10 minutes. Textbook drug traffic patterns. When they finally executed the raid with a full SWAT team, 14 people were inside. Officers shouted commands. People poured out of the back in front of the duplex. But the man they were looking for was nowhere to be found on the ground floor. They looked up. There was Eric Butler, climbing out an attic window, with camera crews from local news stations rolling the whole time. He was taken into custody. To buy money from the informant's controlled purchases was found in his pocket. Also on him was a key that opened the back door of the duplex, and a gold necklace with the words "Must obey bosses forever." Prosecutors charged him with dealing cocaine, a level 2 felony, unlawful possession of a firearm by a serious violent felon, and related charges. It looked airtight. The cameras had caught him. To buy money was in his pocket. His own necklace felt like a confession. And then in February 2025, a jury found Eric Butler not guilty on every single count. Dealing cocaine, dealing in a narcotic drug, unlawful possession of a firearm. Not guilty, not guilty, not guilty. He walked out of that courtroom a free man for the second time in less than a decade. 15 trips to the Marion County Jail, federal gang charges, state drug charges, a SWAT raid on live television, and he kept beating it. You almost start to wonder if he believed he was untouchable, because the way this man moved through the legal system, walking out of charges that would have buried most people, it is hard to imagine he did not feel like something was protecting him, like the universe kept pulling him back from the edge just in time. But 2 months before he died, somebody tried to kill him. In April 2026, Eric Butler was shot at an auto repair shop on East Washington Street, less than a mile from where he would eventually take his last breath. He survived that shooting. Paramedics got to him in time. He recovered, and here's what makes that so haunting. That first shooting was never solved. Nobody was arrested. Nobody was charged. Whoever tried to kill him in April was still out there, still free, still watching. And when Eric walked out of that hospital alive, whoever pulled that trigger now knew 2 things: that he had survived, and that they had unfinished business. On the night of June 18th, going into the early morning hours of June 19th, 2026, Eric Butler was outside of business on the 200 block of South Franklin Road, just off Interstate 465 on the east side of Indianapolis. At approximately 2:25 in the morning, gunshots rang out. Officers responded to reports of a person shot and found Eric slumped inside a car, suffering from multiple gunshot wounds. He was rushed to Ashkenazi Hospital. By the time they got him there, he was gone. The Marion County Coroner's Office officially identified him as 35-year-old Eric D. Butler. IMPD confirmed they had no information on a suspect. No motive was released. The case was assigned to Detective Christina Friel at the IMPD Homicide Office. And just like the April shooting, just like so many cases before it, the trail went cold before it even began. His death came just weeks after another Indianapolis rapper, Playboy the Great, whose real name was Cornell Davis, was murdered on May 5th at his East Side apartment. Cornell had been signed to Boozy Badass's label and had worked with Rick Ross, Young Jeezy, and Kevin Gates. He left behind 2 children, including a 17-year-old son who also raps. 2 prominent Indianapolis rappers killed within weeks of each other, both cases unsolved. The city's music community was shattered. Reverend Charles Harrison of the Indianapolis 10-Point Coalition responded to Eric's death with words that cut deep. He said if you are going to stay in the streets and be involved in criminal activity, one of 2 things is going to happen. Either you're going to end up back in prison, or you're going to be the victim of violent crime. He also placed responsibility on the courts, saying that when repeat offenders are not held accountable, the streets become the final judge. And maybe that is the most uncomfortable truth in this entire story. Because Eric Butler was held accountable by the courts repeatedly, and the courts kept letting him go. Not because he was innocent every time, but because witnesses lied, because evidence fell apart, because the system, as broken as it is, ran its course and came up empty. So the question is not whether the legal system failed. The question is what fills the vacuum when it does. And that brings us to where we are now. No arrests, no publicly confirmed motive, a first shooting in April that was never solved, and a second shooting in June that killed him, 2 months apart, less than a mile apart, the same East Side streets he had rapped about his entire life. So let me ask you something, and I want you to really sit with this. Eric Butler beat the legal system more times than most people can count. But was the legal system even his real enemy? Or was the danger always coming from someone the courts could never reach? When someone survives one attempt on their life and is killed 2 months later almost in the exact same spot, is that a coincidence? Or is that a message that was always going to be delivered one way or another? What does it say about a city when 2 of its most prominent rap artists are killed within weeks of each other? Both cases unsolved, and the music those men made is still playing on people's phones like nothing happened. Eric Butler documented Indianapolis in his music. He told the truth about the streets in a way that made people feel seen. He beat every system that came for him. And in the end, the one thing he could not beat was something that never showed its face in a courtroom. If you made it to the end of this video, you already know what to do. Like this video, subscribe to Crime Files, and hit that bell icon so you get notified every time we drop a new case. We cover the stories of mainstream skips, the ones with real layers, real people, and real questions that deserve real answers. We will see you on the next one.